Hello, friends, and welcome to Season 8 of the Future Ready Librarians podcast series, Leading from the Library. This is a podcast for all librarians wherever you are in your journey. It is filled with amazing guests, important topics, and engaging conversations that will inspire, engage, and support all of us as future ready librarians. I am your host, Shannon McClintock Miller. I am the district teacher librarian at Van Meter Community School in Van Meter, Iowa, and I serve as the Future Ready Librarians leader. I have the pleasure of working within my library and school community and also with others around the country and world through Future Ready librarian events, conferences, consulting, writing, and more. I am honored to bring these voices and the work of others to our podcast and to all of you. Welcome, friends, to another podcast from Future Ready Librarians Leading from the Library. And today I am so excited that I get to welcome someone who I have been wanting to have on the show for a while, my friend Meggan. So welcome.
Thanks. I am so excited to be here. Your podcast is amazing. I love it so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I know we were just talking about the eclipse today and how crazy it was at school and how, yeah, we're just getting our feet back on the ground after being at school for a really busy day.
Yeah, you just get back from spring break and then it's wild and
That's right.
you're
You just got back from your spring break
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Mm. It was crazy. It was
Yes.
crazy. Yeah, it was pretty neat to see though. Pretty fun, pretty cool to see. And I'm glad that the kids, our parent group bought the kids all glasses, and so they were able to go outside. And so that was really special too. But I'm happy to be on here with you because today we're going to talk about something that we haven't talked about before. And that is, I'm sure that we're going to hear about your library and what you do.
Yeah.
But when I asked Meggan what she wanted to talk about, she is going to talk about how you can build a Echo Hub building and Echo Hub saving the planet one library at a time. And
Yeah.
I can't even wait to like dig into that to understand more about number one, what that means, because I'm sure there's a lot of people on the call that haven't heard about the Sustainable Development Goals. So that's going to be really great.
Yep.
And also to hear about what you do, in your library. And you work with high school kids.
Yes. Yeah. So I am a traditional 9 through 12 school, and I use traditional very loosely because I am very fortunate. I work in an area with a lot of money, so we get a lot, probably a lot more flexibility than some of you may have. I also have a para, so I tell people, when they say, "How do you do this?" I say, "Well, I do have para." And we have hour-long lunches, which when I interviewed and they're like, "Our lunches are an hour," I was like, "Yes, please."
Yes, that's an hour long. That's amazing.
Isn't that nuts? Yeah, it's so unheard of. Like, I think most people are, 20 minutes and you're walking kids down and then
Yeah.
scarfing down food. And yeah,
That is really, really great. I know. And so when I say that title and we think about like just our role and how we can save the planet one library at a time, tell us first like what you mean by that. I just want to hear more.
so this all kind of happened when I met Jen Williams, who, yeah, she's fantastic. If you don't know her, her book Teach Boldly is just it's so good. But I met her in person, and she's part of Take Action Global, which is a nonprofit, and kind of built on that. I grew up on a farm, and it was all about sustainability on the farm. And so that kind of, rolled over into the library as to how we can kind of save the planet, like just little bits. How do you incorporate that into your maker program? How do you get books and promote books that do that? And so it's just kind of snowballed.
But that's perfect though, because it's something that you have grown up with and you're passionate about. And then I'm sure
Yeah.
putting it all together just makes sense. And your kids, like, they get to benefit from that. And these
Yeah.
are things that you can, teach them to take with them too as they leave school. And so that's really exciting. And just start by just telling a little bit more about the SDGs, because I think that is, I am so whenever I see something that Jen puts out there, anybody, it is so interesting and something that we all need to think about every day.
Yeah. So the Sustainable Development Goals are done by the UN, and there's 17 of them. And they aren't just what you think of as like their traditional climate change. There's also things about ending poverty, ending gender gaps, social justice, providing equitable and sustainable housing, providing water for everybody. So it's really all encompassing. And I think a lot of libraries, we serve as hubs for our communities in the building. We're the heart of the school and we're always advocating for our students. And I think a lot of librarians don't realize how many of these they're doing already.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and I think that that's something too that when I go into libraries and I see when people are like really empowering their kids to like take action for things, is
Yeah.
so exciting to me because we see all the kids, right? We get to impact every single one of the kids and our teachers and our families within our community. And so it is a great place, just like you said, as the heart of our school to do something like this. That's neat.
Yeah.
When you think about too, like do you have like a maker space in your library?
Yes. So our maker space isn't just one spot, because like many of us, our areas are taken over by other things. So ours is kind of spread throughout the library, but we have an area, and this kind of developed over time, which is like we have our passive programming right where you walk into the library. So that's like our traditional makerspace area. And then we also have like sewing machines and things spread throughout the library.
Love that.
Yes.
I love it. So I'm
Yeah.
sure there's lots of cool things that go on there. So like what do you do? Like how do you tie in then that sustainability like within your maker space? Tell us about maybe some projects or things that the kids are doing there.
Yeah. So ours is very, very student led. I really had a student probably 3 years ago now that said, "Hey, I want to bring awareness to food equity. Let's plant 500 plants and give them out to the school." Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so neat.
I know. And we talk about the power of yes. And I was like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. Um, and so this is repeated year after year. So part of our Earth Day is we plant plants, but we use egg cartons. So we're using recyclable materials. And then, we talk about collaboration. My sister, who's in Indiana, is part of a master's garden program. And so she donates 40 different kinds of seeds for us. So the only thing I have to pay for is dirt.
Yes.
And it's a great way to really talk about, sustainable food practices. It's a great way for us. Our kids don't necessarily know like where food comes from. They go to, the supermarket, Kroger, and they pick up their groceries, and that's where the food comes from. Um, so
That
we kind of started there, and we use a lot of recyclable materials in our makerspace, which I think a lot of libraries do that and just don't even
yeah.
realize like things like cardboard challenges, like that works into that sustainable piece. We're doing a workshop this upcoming week, like bring a shirt with holes in it, and I'm going to show you how to embroider the holes. So that we're reusing things instead of throwing them away, and
That is
reusing things like scrap fabric, and just kind of bringing awareness to different ways we can save the planet.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I love because oftentimes, like, even just for us to be inspired, like you said, it's very student led. And I think
Yeah.
that helps us be better too at, not just being a librarian and a teacher, but like just being a human too, because we get to hear their ideas on helping with those things too. So I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, and my students are so passionate about it. So it's great to get their input and they get their voice in that space as well and get to see themselves.
That is
So,
really cool. So have you had like a favorite project besides the plants? I mean, that's pretty awesome.
oh man, so I partnered with Martha Bongiorno, who is just, y'all know, she's fantastic. Everything she touches is gold. And we decided last year to do a global maker day based upon the SDGs. And this is probably my favorite overall. We invited we have a nature center. So we invited a speaker from there to come talk to our kids. And she was fantastic and showed us rescue animals and talked about changes we can make in our backyard. So the Take Action Global website has a list of books. And so we tied picture books to maker projects that all worked in the SDGs. Yeah.
Awesome. That is really cool. You'll have to share that list of books with us. Where do we find?
Yes.
I was going to ask that too. Like, like when you do these projects, like that's something to think about, right? Is like how
Right.
we're using like books and resources and things to help us too.
Yeah. And, I'm always amazed by things like I love Pinterest. Pinterest has so many ideas that you can be like, oh, I could do this project with materials I already have.
Yes, so true. Yeah,
Mhm.
that is so neat. So if people like if they're thinking like, like how do we get started? Or like I'm sitting here thinking like I want to do that too. I want to do a maker day or a global project. Like I think that that is something that it's sometimes hard for people to know like even where to start, like
Yeah.
how do we just start that?
Yeah, and I mean, I like just follow a lot of crafters on Instagram, and I would say other librarians too. A lot of times you start and see a project and say, okay, how can I incorporate this into what I'm already doing, or how could I do this with scrap fabric instead of, brand new fabric? Um, I
Yeah.
just, Instagram, I just saw something where you can make, and we've done this too, like bioplastic. Um,
Oh, cool.
yeah, yeah, I know. And I definitely, y'all know there's all the Pinterest and like Instagram saves of like, yeah, I'll do this later. No.
Yeah. But it's so fun. But it's also fun to show the kids, like, hey, I saw this idea. Like,
Yes.
let's do this. It also makes me think about, like you talked about, like collaborating with Martha, but I'm sure that your teachers also have you done some neat projects with them too? Like, how do you get like the teachers involved?
So for me, we're part of this is part of that Take Action Global. We're part of Climate Action Schools. And so they have monthly lessons they send out. And so we have environmental science classes, and I work closely with them. And I'll say, hey, here's this lesson. How could we manipulate this for high school to fit into what you're doing? And so that's how we work with the teachers a lot. And it also fits, I don't think a lot of people know this, but like a lot of the sustainable development goals, like at least in Georgia, fit in to our curriculum. So our AP Human Geography actually incorporates all 17 of those goals into it. And so I work very closely with her to talk about, how do we do this? And then you can bring that maker piece into the classroom as well.
Oh, very cool. You're lucky to have that, like, and be able to. I think a lot of times people, they might like wonder where they fit in all that collaboration, but that's like the perfect way.
Yeah.
And also to bring in what you're really passionate about. And everybody wins from that because of the great things that you're doing. So
Mhm.
good for you, friend. That's so
Thanks.
awesome. I love
Thanks.
it. That is so neat. So are you like, do you share about these things? I'm sure that people are going to want to know. Like, how can they follow what you're doing or get ideas from you too?
Okay, so at Ms. Ford, like the car, Fierce, on Instagram and Twitter. I definitely post on Instagram much more. I feel like Twitter is kind of, or X is kind of dying. And so I post a lot of stories and pictures on Instagram. And then if you reach out to me there or send me a DM, I'm happy to share any resources I have. Usually they're just stuck in my OneDrive somewhere in whatever catastrophe.
I love it. Oh, you're great at sharing.
Thanks.
I love following the things that you do. And I think you're just such an inspiration. Every time I see
Oh,
you, I
thank
get
you.
happy. So I'm glad to
Oh,
be on the
thanks.
podcast.
Yay. Thank you for inviting me. I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
I know you're so welcome. And I know that people will be reaching out, and it's so inspiring to hear, like I think today, also just having a day where we all thought about the earth and we thought about the sun,
Mhm.
moon, and all this, and it's Earth Day in April. And so this all really fits together. But thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah. And as I tell my students, go outside in the sun, touch some grass. Uh,
It's get a little play in.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love it. Well, my friend, I will see you soon and thank you again.
Yes, thank you so much.
As always, thank you to all of our listeners for joining us for this episode of the Future Ready Librarian podcast series, Leading from the Library. And a very special thank you to our sponsors, Follett. You make a difference in our libraries, schools, and within our lives and that of our students every day. We appreciate everything you do. I hope you can take what you learned in today's podcast and put it to use within your practice as a future ready librarian. If I can support you in any way, please feel free to reach out to me on X or Instagram at Shannon M. Miller or to my email at shannonmcclintockmiller@gmail.com. I am always happy to help. Until next time, friends, keep finding ways to lead within and from your library.